Hello and welcome to the first episode of She Sparks Business Live. We're super excited. Women are leaving their mark and sharing their spark. We have a very special guest with us today, our first guest of our show, Samantha Parker, who is an expert in branding. And so we're super excited to have you today. To spark off our first episode, I want to ask you a really crazy question.
Okay.
And that is, if you could wear any color for the rest of your life, or if you had to pick one color to wear, what would it be and why?
I like this question. This might sound ridiculous to you because remember how I had hot pink hair for 2 years before I went blonde? I would actually just wear black. I love black. The more black I can own, the better.
Black.
Yeah.
And why
you
is
see
that?
me a lot. I wear black all the time.
Yes, and why black?
Black to me just feels like super classy, and then I love it too because you can like pop it like yellow shoes, pink shoes. Yep, I'm looking at your shoes back there. You can wear bright hair. I love to have bright nails. Honestly though, I even like black nails, black toes, like as much black as I can get.
I love that. I was thinking you were going to say pink just because of your brand.
I do have
but I love it. Black goes with everything, so that's super exciting. So I definitely wanted Sam to be our first guest today because I love what she's doing. And so Samantha Parker, will you tell us a little bit about what you're doing and what your passion is in your industry?
I will. Okay, I shared this video. So I'm the co-founder of Badassery Magazine, but I started out a few years ago building Hype Social Strategies, which was social media management. And then I've kind of evolved from there, and I've been working on Badassery Magazine, and then I have my own personal brand as well. So what I do is kind of multifaceted, which is, I'm pretty sure we'll get into this, why I love personal branding is because it can be multifaceted. So I can talk about things that I love, like women's empowerment, or I can talk about things like women's empowerment, or I can talk about things like Instagram and digital marketing, or, just basic branding aspects. And then I can talk about things that involve my life. Like I'm a mom, I'm an army wife, and I get to be who I am online. So that's really why I dived into it.
She's a Swift Army knife. She seriously does everything. I freaking love that about you.
No, I said army wife.
Well, and I said a Swift Army knife. So
I
Swift Army knife is, that's where you got your scissors, your screwdriver. It means you're the jack of all trades. You can do it all.
Okay, I'm with you now.
Which I love. Samantha Parker, everybody. So you're a huge mentor in my life and a huge inspiration not only to our community, but statewide, nationwide. I mean, you're everywhere and you have a really large following. So give us a little bit of information of what sparked your journey and what really led you to where you're at today.
Yeah, so it's global.
Global.
Okay. Really what sparked my journey was I was completely miserable in my life. And is this a cool story to tell?
Yes, please.
So what sparked my journey was I was doing something that everyone just kind of pushed me into, and they're like, this is what you're really good at. It was a family business, but then it like morphed into a bigger business that I went to work for. And they were like, this is what you're going to do. This is what you're really, really good at. And it turns out I was really, really good at this particular thing, right? And I've, had things published in magazines and all of this other stuff. And we had just moved here to St. George, which I love southern Utah, but I can't figure out why it's still raining. Right? Like, why is it still raining? Sunny southern Utah, I love you. You keep us going. But I moved here to St. George where I'd always wanted to live. We'd bought a house. I have an amazing husband. I've got 2 kids, and I couldn't figure out why I hated my life so much. And so what sparked my journey was ultimately I hated my life so much that I didn't want to live in my life anymore. And I knew at that time it was a personal wake-up call. And I said, we've got to do something different, or, I've got to do something different. I also talked to myself as well. I'm like, what are we going to do, Samantha? So we
all do that.
Yeah. So I went into my job and I gave them, a 6-week notice, and I was just basically was like, I'm super miserable. And that's kind of what sparked my journey. So, which might sound a little opposite, right? Because I wasn't inspired by anything, but really I was so low that I couldn't get any lower, that I had to find some way up. And so I just kind of like reached up and been building ever since.
I love that because it people really don't think about the journey. Like they see these people who are successful and they're thriving in life, and we think like, oh, I want to do that, I want to be that, and they don't realize that even the most successful people go through hard things, but that's what makes us who we are.
Well, they do, and I've had some personal stuff going on lately, and I told my assistant today, I'm like, oh, this is like, well, she was like, that's crazy that that's happening, and I was like, you know what, though, I just keep reminding myself that it's making me who I am, and every time I have to deal with this stuff, it makes me a better person.
I love that. And so you're an expert, like we talked about, in many different things, but please share of like why or how can personal branding really help startups and companies in general?
So when we think of brands, right, a lot of times we go to the traditional thing, like the easiest one is Nike. You know, check, then they add just do it.
Or
how
Apple.
long have they been running with just do it?
I
don't remember them not doing
launched,
it.
I think.
No, not since they launched, because if you read the book Shoe Dog,
No.
it's the Nike story. It'll blow your mind. It's funny because the founder of Nike and I have the same birthday, so it's kind of meant to
Ooh,
be.
special.
But yeah, their journey's incredible, and they definitely didn't start with just, you know, the check mark even, and they were called something else, and it's really intriguing how they started. But it's a great book. Highly recommend it for all entrepreneurs. But when we think of brands, we start thinking of those iconic things like Target, you know, and all of that. But really, like, they don't have a lot of personality to them. And as the digital world is shifting, well, I should say the whole world is shifting into digital. The digital world's here, and it moves really, really fast, so it's always shifting too. That kind of stuff doesn't have as much pull as it used to. You know, the big brands are always going to dominate because we love our big brands. But when you're a company or you're a personal brand, like your own person brand, or you're a new business owner, or you're doing some sort of startup, like you really have to get multi-dimensional, multifaceted, and you have to start diving into what you really, really love. And a lot of times we tend to build things that are for what we think everyone else wants.
Yeah.
And we don't build it for ourselves. And you know what? It's not really the case anymore. When you start looking at social media, it's all about influencers. So if you're building something for other people and you're not building it to involve you and your lifestyle, and you know, even when you think of companies too, company culture nowadays is so important. I bet you guys talk about it a lot, like, how do we want to feel when we're at She Sparks? You know, what do we want to expand to? And as you're, you know, I'm sure you'll have like a little massive team here soon.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, what kind of culture do we want to develop? That's when personal branding comes in, and that's why it's really so important, is that you're staying on with like these core focuses of who we are as a company. And you know, there's a lot of companies who've done it really well. The easiest one to look at is like Gary Vaynerchuk and you know, VaynerMedia, or I think they just renamed. I'm not sure if they renamed or they just keep adding like little
Things here
little
and there.
pieces, yeah. But you look at stuff like that, and they're obsessed with the company culture, and they're obsessed with making great experiences. And when you look at his company too, he's got sports, he's got music, shoes, like all the things that he loves are part of this multi-million dollar organization.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, everybody starts somewhere. And so I know for our listeners, there's some out there who they really want to start a business, or they are in a business right now that they just want to be bigger. So what can these listeners do if they really want a personal brand? Like, where do they start?
This is a great question. The first place you should always start when you're like, what do I want to put out into the world, is you should take a look and just call them brand pillars. And essentially, if you draw a little map, it's like the pillars your business sits on, and it's like, what is that, like Roman times, you know? Come on, help me out.
I don't know, but I'm envisioning it.
And your pillars are really what your brand is all about. So one of the easiest examples is there's a really famous photographer online. She talks about photography, so that's one of her brand pillars. That's the actual thing she does, right? That makes her big portion of her income. But then she also talks about macaroni and cheese. Like, she's passionate about macaroni and cheese.
Okay.
And then she talks a lot about body positivity, which recently just landed her in a really big, like, campaign with, like, her in her bra and panties, right? And then she talks about animal, I believe. Like, she's really passionate about animals and just, like, animal rescues. And then she talks about infertility because it's something that she struggled with. So she has these 5 different things that she talks about. Really, one of them is only photography. So the best place to start, I'm like, circling back to your question, the best place to start is really just develop like what your core values are. So Badassery Magazine, we talk about, you know, women's empowerment, but then we'll talk about business, we talk about community, we talk about wine, which always cracks people up, and we talk about it in the sense of not like, this is my favorite Pinot, and it pairs well with the, I don't know, the chocolate or the blue cheese. I don't know. See, exactly. But we talk about wine in a sense of community and that family. Like, say you're having a really, really crappy day, and like your best friend shows up at your door with like favorite bottle of wine and is like, let's talk this out, girl. You know, or even like kind of the European traditional wine model. Everyone sits around the table, they enjoy this amazing meal together, and they just cultivate these incredible relationships that we don't really do here. It's like food in the mouth, you know?
Yeah.
So we talk about it in that sense. And then we also talk about glitter, because if you're familiar with marketing, there's something called shotgun marketing. Are you familiar with shotgun marketing?
No, but this is why you're here.
So shotgun marketing is essentially saying like, okay, so if I give you a handgun and you fire it, it's going to make a straight hole through, the chair over there. If I give you a shotgun and you fire it, it's going to all those little things are going to explode because the shotguns have the shells and they just, right? So shotgun marketing is that theory of you're hitting everywhere and you're doing as much as you want. So we talk about glitter though instead of shotguns because I was like, nobody wants to sit around and talk about shotguns. And the fact that when you hold a hand of glitter and you blow it, it sticks to everything. And you go home and you're like, oh, I got that gold glitter on myself. I don't know where it came from. You're like, yes, I do. So It's kind of that same theory.
I love it. And so from everything that you just said, from my understanding, personal branding is a lot more than just an image and a logo. It's actually the culture and the way that we represent ourselves, our employees, whether we're on the clock or not. And so my last question for you is, what do you think businesses tend to overlook when it comes to personal branding?
I think they take themselves out of it, right?
Yeah.
And they completely take themselves out of it. And we're in this era now. I keep saying that. I don't know why. I'm like, everyone knows what era they're living in, right? But when social media first really got big, especially if you look at Instagram 5 years ago, Kim Kardashian kind of ruled the land, right? So it was those macro influencers, those really big ones. And now these micro influencers are actually selling cars and they're selling, big things with small followings because they put themselves into it. So when they share experiences in their life, their followers are really vested in that. Kim Kardashian, she's great, but if she talks about a lipstick, it's because she's getting paid to talk about a lipstick, right? So maybe I talk about a lipstick, and part of my branding is I'm super passionate about animal rights. So everyone knows that this.
Are you?
No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's not part of my whole scope that I talk about. But everyone's gonna know that this is cruelty-free, vegan, trusted word. It's that no trust factor. So a lot of times businesses are trying to keep themselves out of their own brand when really they need to put themselves in their brand.
Yeah, and just absorb it. I mean, I think the favorite thing about the She Sparks brand is I eat, breathe, and sleep. I don't just promote my brand when I'm at work or when I'm at an event. I even wear it. Mm-hmm. I talk about it and I share it with others and I talk about it with my employees and let them know what your brand is, because especially if you have employees, right? You have an employee, you have to share what your brand is and the culture in order for not just the owner to get it, but the people surrounding you as well, right?
Exactly.
Is there any last education pieces that you would like to throw some freebies out there so people can learn a little bit more about personal branding?
Oh, I should have come with something. But I really think the best thing you can do too when it comes to branding is we tend to look at these brands and these, women online that are already super polished and they already have, gone through the motions. They figured out what they want, and we tend to compare ourselves a lot to them. And I think it's really important that we just start where we are today and we don't try and be, that 5 years ahead. Because the very first post I ever put on my own, personal hype social strategies was a red umbrella. Yeah, and it makes no sense, right? But so realize that I've gone through 5 years of evolution to get to where I am, plus all the other years before that even got me to that point. Mm-hmm. So you have to realize that your success is determined by the moment you're living in, not by the moment in the future. So don't get caught up on having this perfectly polished presentation. Yeah. I couldn't have sat here and even talked like this, 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So don't get caught up in having this perfect, whole thing. Just put something out and, really focus on consistency and realize that you're going to develop as you go along. And whatever you decide to do too, maybe one day you love mac and cheese and then you find out you're,
allergic.
Vegan. I don't know.
Or vegan. Yeah, there you go.
Can't eat anymore. And so then maybe you're passionate about something else. Your life is going to change.
Yeah.
And so be willing to evolve with it.
Yeah, and definitely just take the risk, because I know that a lot, especially as women, we're our number one critics. We beat ourselves up so much. And so if you have a goal, if you want to do something, then just take the risk, right?
Yeah, and what if we started changing that narrative too? We as women beat ourselves up so much. What if we started saying we as women empower ourselves so much?
Yes, I love it. I love it. And beats the purpose of She Sparks. Success happens every day, and it truly does. So, Samantha, you have been to a couple of She Sparks events, and we love you there. Can you please share with our listeners a little bit about She Sparks business, what you like about it, as well as women's empowerment?
I loved She Sparks because, well, A, it was for women, but I've done a lot of networking, and traditional networking bothers me. You know, you get a lot of traditional businesses in there that have some really negative things to say, and a lot of times for women, well, not a lot of times, it's just pure facts. I mean, look at what's going on in the news. It is a fact. It is harder for women to build businesses than it is for men, which I'm hoping that narrative changes as well.
Yeah.
But having a support system for women is incredibly important. And so when you go somewhere where it's women going through what you're going through, everything changes. So you have to have that place. Like, women need support more than anything. That's why we built Badassery Magazine, is because when I was building a business, I was going to this traditional networking stuff. I wasn't getting the support. I was getting made fun of. I was getting told that I created hobbies for housewives and things like that. So it's really important for women to be like, no, I'm here. Like, right? I'm she, hear me roar. I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. So it's great that She Sparks is doing that.
And we all rise together. Yes, I totally agree. Well, we actually have something for you, Samantha, and we really are grateful for you to be here and visiting us for our first episode. And so please tune in for next time. Our next video is going to be this coming Friday at 9:45. We're going live for episode 2, and we're talking about selling versus educating, and we have a special guest with us. So please tune in next time. Thank you again, Samantha Parker, and we'll see you later.